to Science with Shields. Last week, we talked about the tornado tube and we showed you how a tornado works. Now, I had a poll on Facebook at one point that said, would you like to see the tornado tube or would you like to see the Oobleck experiment? Most of you picked the tornado tube. However, I think once you see this Oobleck experiment, you're going to think it's really cool. So, always safety first when we're experimenting. So we're going to put our safety glasses on. And remember, this experiment you can easily do at home. This one is super simple. There's only 3 ingredients. You're going to need cornstarch, you're going to need water, and you're going to need some food coloring. This Oobleck experiment is based off a Dr. Seuss book, Bartholomew and the Oobleck, and that book was published in 1949. I love reading and I love science, so we're combining that together. We're going to be talking about non-Newtonian fluids today, and we're going to explain what that means. And quicksand is one of them. Cornstarch has the molecules that can create that as well if you mix it with water. So that's what we're going to do. So all you need is a bowl. I would suggest using any type of bowl because this is an easy experiment to clean up, even though it's a very messy experiment to do. So first we're going to put some water into our bowl. And then we're going to add some cornstarch. So I'm going to open this up. And again, this is going to be really cool once we start going. Actually, I may switch from this bowl to this one that's clear, because then we could be able to see it a little bit better. So we're going to switch bowls. Put some water in, and then we're going to dump some cornstarch in. And then we're going to slowly start to mix this up. And it's going to turn a milky white color, and we're going to continue to add some cornstarch until we get just the right mixture. Again, this is science, so you can experiment with the different types. You can add more water, let more water go, and you just keep adding, and you're just going to slowly spin it. And it's going to slowly start to feel like a solid as you spin it and you continue to add cornstarch. So we're going to continue. I need Jordan Tracy here making his music noises because I don't typically do stuff like this. All right, so we're slowly going to start to feel this turning into almost a solid. And what's really cool is the molecules in the water and the cornstarch in this experiment, they're suspended. So they can move from a solid to a liquid. And that's what's really cool about this. I'm now starting to get it to feel like that Oobleck. And so I'm going to add a little bit of green dye into it because in the Dr. Seuss book, it's a green goo. So we're going to add some of that in here. Okay. And it's really cool because, like I said, it's going to be suspended between 2 different states, a solid state and also a liquid state. So continue to mix this up a little bit. And we're going to feel this. Now I'm going to pick it up. I think we may need a little more cornstarch, and sometimes it helps if you wait a little bit. And what's neat about non-Newtonian fluids is that basically it's not usually when you want to change the molecules or you want to change something, you add heat to it. But this is different. This is added by force. So that's the difference between this and some other stuff. It's the force that changes it from a solid to a liquid, and that's what makes it a non-Newtonian fluid. So I have some here. I'm going to move this up, and you can kind of see it in my hand. It gets hard here, and it's almost like you can make it into a ball. You see that? But then if I stop, it turns straight back into goo. And that's because, like I said, whenever you're putting force on those molecules, it becomes a rigid solid. But then once you stop, those molecules then are able to flow around and it turns back into a liquid. So really cool. Again, kind of a messy experiment. And again, if we take a little bit of a closer look, you can see it's kind of a harder, and then it will just ooze right through my fingers. I want to show you something else that's really cool about this. Some people will even fill entire pools up with this Oobleck, and if you run quick enough, your feet are hard enough on impact that you can run across it even though it's just water and cornstarch. So what's really neat, if I tried to touch this, it's very hard, right? You can kind of see here there's no impact on this at all. I'm not getting my hands through. But if I slowly stick my fingers in, I can get to the bottom and pick it up. But like I said, if we let it go for a second and I just stick my hands in it, it's just a solid. I'll do it with my hand that's not messy so that you can see how this is just no impact. Look, my hands come out and there's hardly anything on it. And that's because when you put that force on it, it's turning into a solid because you're using force, and that's all it takes. Again, this can be easily done with just some water and also some cornstarch. So let's take a look at the science behind it. Molecules are in suspension, which means it's between a solid and a liquid. Viscosity is the measure of resistance to flow, and that's what's happening. This has a certain viscosity. We're actually going to be doing some other experiments here down the road, which we're going to talk about viscosity and how you can use cornstarch and borax to make different types of viscosity. That's how we can make slime and also even some bouncy balls. So this is a non-Newtonian fluid. Again, non-Newtonian fluid. Very hard for me to say for some reason, which means it changes with force, not heat. And that's why just by being able to punch this or touch it, it can go from that solid to a liquid very easily. So really cool Oobleck experiment. Again, it doesn't take much. Just make sure that you have a surface that you're not afraid to get some food dye on, and also that you're not afraid to get a little bit dirty. Also, what's great about this, even though it turns into a solid, if you add enough water, this can go down your sink because, again, it's just made out of cornstarch and water. Thanks for joining us for Science with Shields.